Okay, intro 662, crooked liver. I hope your liver's not crooked. Uh, Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. Apostle David Patten was the first LDS martyr. He was killed trying to rescue 3 Mormon hostages from a Missouri militia. Exaggerated reports said that Mormons wiped out the entire militia, but that was not true. However, it caused Governor Lilburn Boggs to issue the Extermination Order, which said that Mormons must be treated as enemies and exterminated from the state. We'll talk more about that with historian Steve LeSueur. He's the author of the 1838 Mormon War in Missouri, and we'll find out more about this terrible battle. Check out our conversation.
So, when did Boggs get the information about the Mormons plundering? This is in Daviess County. Am I right on that?
Yes. So what happened is that when this was happening, meanwhile, back in far west, other plans were also being made for war. And among other things, there was a meeting on October 20th. Joseph was still in Adam-on-Diamond, but apparently Sidney Rigdon and maybe Avard were there, and there were plans made there. Among the things at this meeting was they weren't going to let any more dissenters leave far west. They also formed a spy group, a 12-person spy group, to go into essentially this northern part of Ray County and make sure nobody was coming against them. But if somebody, if Missourians were coming against them, then to go and burn their crops and do the same. So there was a spy company down there. And again, from the Mormons' point of view, perfectly logical. We're at war and people are coming against us and the government's not helping us. So in any case, with these preparations, Orson Hyde and Thomas Marsh, among others, they go to Richmond in Ray County. And now Ray is directly south of Caldwell. Sure. And they go to Richmond and they go down there and they essentially spill the beans. They say, the Mormons, they're burning Daviess County, and meanwhile, the settlers are fleeing Daviess County, and I'll even back up. One of the points we see in my book as the events unfold is whenever Missourians, not whenever, but often when non-Mormons would come and complain about the Mormons are doing this, the Mormons are doing that, we need your help. The people would send representatives up to go see what's going on, and often they would say the Mormons are in defense, fighting in defense. So when the Daviess County citizens were driven from Daviess County by the Mormons, they went to Richmond and said they're driving us out. Well, the Ray County citizens said, they've never done that before. They sent a committee, up to Daviess County, and they talked to Josiah Moran, among others, and they also saw all the burned buildings. And they said, and then they came back and reported about October 22nd or 23rd that yes, the Mormons are doing these things. And then that next day is when Orson Hyde and Thomas Marsh show up, and they say, yeah, they're doing this. And Joseph's, these are my words now, but in essence, if you read their affidavit, it's essentially Joseph's out of control, and he thinks he's going to take over the entire state. And they've got these Danites, and they, and they've sworn, vengeance and this and that, and so this is October 24th. And so then the Ray County citizens, they become frightened. They've got this report from their committee. They've got the report from Marsh and Hyde, who also talk about the spy company that's threatening, and so they send a dispatch to the governor, Governor Boggs.
Mm-hmm.
And so So then they also send Captain Bogart north along to range the line south of Caldwell County to prevent the Mormons from attack, because they think the Mormons are going to attack. So that's their mindset, is they're not planning to attack the Mormons, but they think the Mormons are planning to attack. And so then, while Bogart, who's really a kind of an unprincipled man, he goes beyond his orders, and he kind of goes into Caldwell County as well and threatens the Mormons there and disarms the Mormons in southern part of Caldwell County. And he also finds, he captures two of the spies. He knows they're spies, and he captures them, and he captures a third man at the house where they're staying, and he takes them, and there's some threats of, let's put these guys to death. And so other spies who watch this happen ride back to Far West and say, all right, they've just taken 3 prisoners and they're threatening to kill them. And so that's when David W. Patten raises his force of men, and they ride down to Crooked River, where Bogart is camped, and you have the Battle of Crooked River on October 25th. Again, the Mormons are going down there to free the prisoners. They're not going down to attack Richmond. They're going down to free the prisoners. And meanwhile, the evidence from the prisoners is, they're probably going to be let go. This is afterwards. But the Mormons didn't know that. And again, Bogart was not a very principled man. So there's this attack by the Mormons at the Battle of Crooked River. 3 Mormons are killed. 1 Missourian is killed. But the Mormons drive the Missourians from the ground. And the Missourians think they're wiped out. That every man, they sort of scatter and as they're reporting what happens, it's like, I'm the only guy who survived. And, but the thing is, that's what the Mormons thought too. That when you read the accounts of Hosea Stout and some others, they also thought they just wiped these guys out.
And nobody died. Well, you said 1 died. 1 died, and there were several injured.
Now,
because isn't this an issue? Was this kind of a ruse to pull the Mormons out, or you? It sounds like because it seems like, if I remember right, Alex Boss said that they had the Missourians had these 3 Mormon prisoners, and they wanted to draw the Mormons out.
They were baiting them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think so. No, I think, they based on the reports they had, the Mormons had attacked Daviess County. They had heard from Marsh and Hyde, among other dissenters, that the Mormons had violent, aggressive intentions. They thought, they were just defending against them. And they took the spies. They'd heard about the spy company. These, they weren't supposed to be there. The spies, they had bad intentions. So, yeah, I think they were just operating under their own assumptions of what the Mormons' intentions were.
So you're saying the Missourians, they had these 3 spies, and then they were just trying to defend the border.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And just to be clear, I think 2 of them were spies. The third person was at the house where the spies were. And so for whatever reason, they took him as a prisoner as well.
Okay. And so then David Patten attacks and ends up dying in the attack.
That's right. And so then these guys scatter. That is the Bogart's company.
But the Mormon prisoners are rescued, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so they, in fact, when the Mormons showed up, Bogart put the men on the front line, apparently, so they'd be shot first if the shooting occurred. And one of them was shot and injured, and the other, but he recovered, and the other 2 got away. So,
like human shields?
Yeah, it's unclear exactly where he put them, but they were in the front somewhere.
Wow.
And so also, again, here's the Missourians' mindset based on when Marsh and Hyde and other Mormons come and say, here's what's happening with the Mormons, they're going to attack. The Missourians sent all of their women and children across the river out of Richmond in anticipation of attack by the Mormons. So they thought the Mormon, this is before Bogart, the Crooked River battle. They evacuate the town essentially, and then they send Bogart up to guard the border so the Mormons can't attack the town. Patten attacks, not to attack the town, but to rescue the prisoners. So now, this is October 25th. And October 24th was when Marsh and Hyde signed their affidavits. On the 25th, you have the battle. The Missourians come back to Richmond and say, the Mormons are attacking. They just attacked our troops and they wiped us out. And the Missourians, they have, all sorts of beliefs about, the strength of the Mormons. The Mormons, can bring a lot of soldiers to bear. They can overwhelm any one county easily. And so now with this new information about the battle, they send a new dispatch out begging, telling Boggs about this. So now when Boggs, he's already heard about Daviess County and he's calling out the troops because of Daviess County. I mean, he's already heard about the Mormons, what they've done in Daviess County, and he's called out like 2,500 troops. Now he gets this other dispatch about the Mormons attacking Bogart and apparently threatening the rest of Western Missouri. And then he issues his extermination order. And so these are this is why he says, now he says something to the effect of, now we've received even worse news than we thought, and it puts everything in a new light. And so now the Mormons must be treated as enemies of the state and exterminated or driven from the state.
And what day was that order issued?
I think it was the 27th. I should know. I should have it memorized.
That's fine.
Well, actually, I also pulled out to help me here my chronology. It's in my book.
That's right.
And yes, it's the 27th.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they don't have TV, so it doesn't get out right now.
So where my history is perhaps different from how historians interpret things is I see these events, unfolding. It's this happens and this happens. It wasn't any grand conspiracy by Missourians to take the Mormons' land and again, in this case with Bogart, I don't think he was baiting them. He was, trying to draw them so that he could attack back. I mean, they were fearful of the Mormons, and so things just snowballed and such that, snowballed from this first, I'll call it incident, so to speak, of the Mormons moving into DeWitt and in Carroll County, and the Carroll County citizens saying, wait a second, you violated your agreement that you would stay only in Caldwell County. Now, in saying these things, let me make clear, I am not saying, therefore the Mormons caused the problem, or the Mormons were, at fault, or they deserved what they got. I'm just saying, here's how things unfolded. Just like when I'm saying, the original story that Joseph and Hiram and Lyman White and the Mormons told, that we went to Daviess County because we were, the state troops called us, and Joseph, I had no authority whatsoever, and we didn't do any burning. The Missourians burned their own homes. When I point out, that's not exactly true. That really Joseph, was directing these activities, and they did plunder and they burned and they drove the citizens away, and whatever their intentions, it turned out to be somewhat helter-skelter of friends and foes. Everybody left. That's still not to say then the Mormons were at fault. No, but it does help us understand why the Missourians reacted as they did. Why they thought, that we've got to defend ourselves.
Well, and I'd like to kind of get into the, is it blame game? Are Mormons 50% responsible and Missourians 50% responsible, or Mormons 80? Is it 80-20? What would you say? Can you assign that blame?
Yeah. I will say that first, even though, we are interested in blame sometimes, that I try to emphasize it's just understanding again how at the beginning of the conflict, at the beginning of 1838, when everything was so rosy, how did we end up in this place? And here's the understanding now. Who's at fault? You could say, well, the Missourians are at fault because they wouldn't let the Mormons settle where they wanted to, these non-Mormons. Also at fault was the local government that didn't protect the Mormons because it didn't really have the capability. It wasn't necessarily always the fault of the local authorities who, tried to stop the vigilantes. They weren't equipped. They weren't trained to do this kind of thing. It was also the fault of Boggs, who essentially, he was probably the only person who had the prestige and the wherewithal, really the prestige and the power to have stopped all this. And it would have required him to come out with troops and stay there for years or something. I'm not quite sure, but you could say, well, he did not do his part at all. So it was their fault. On the other hand, you could say, well, it was the fault of the Mormons in that they didn't stay in Caldwell County like they apparently agreed to, or like everybody thought.
Like the Missouri, I love how you say that's a kind of a distinction, because they're like, we never agreed to that, but the Missourians thought they did.
Or that it was their fault, and that they thought, that they didn't realize, the impact that they had on the non-member communities. But I wouldn't say it like that. All I would say is that the Mormons wanted to settle where they wanted to settle, and when push came to shove, they were ready to fight. And in fact, they thought they could hold off anybody who came against them. And was that rational? Well, as it turned, or reasonable, as it turns out, yeah, it was the wrong calculation. I think Alex and I would both agree that the Mormons were in kind of a lose-lose situation. In Davies, they could go up there and they could have defended against any, they didn't need to burn and plunder. They could have defended against any vigilantes. But how long could they have stayed there, and how long could they have done that? Back to your 50%, 80%, I don't know. That I thought about this, that if you want to blame anybody, blame God. He called them there. They went there like they were supposed to. He promised them he would defend them. He promised angels would fight on their side. Still, they got driven. How does that strike you?
That's interesting. So you don't want to go assign blame as to who's more at fault, or the equal at fault?
No, it was the anti-Mormon vigilantes. I don't want to say Missourians, because there were lots of Missourians who sympathized with the Mormons. That in the course of events, they were again sending troops out to intervene. They were sending representatives to look at what was going on, and the representatives would come back and say, no, the Mormons are not at fault. Some of the Missouri newspapers also supported the Mormons. They would say things like, well, we think the Mormons are deluded fanatics, and we don't like their religion, but they still have the right to settle there if they want to.
Outside of Caldwell County, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
If they've broken the law, then punish them according to the law, but don't. But you can't tell people, that you can't make.
Where they live.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with historian Steve LeSueur. In our next conversation, we're going to talk about the Hans Mill massacre and Joseph's surrender to Missouri militia leaders.
General Lucas subsequently held a court martial of the prisoners and considering them, military leaders, court-martialed them and sentenced them to death, and then asked General Doniphan's troops to carry out the sentence.
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please subscribe to patreon.com/gospeltangents for just $5 a month. Patreon is spelled patreon.com/gospeltangents. If you'd like to watch the entire video, you can subscribe at YouTube, Patreon, or on my website at gospeltangents.com and click the yellow subscribe button for just $8 a month. PDF transcripts are just $10 a month, and you can get those on patreon.com/gospeltangents or on my website. I'll send those to you as soon as I've finished completing it. If you'd like to get a paperback and PDF, just subscribe for $20 a month at either Patreon or on my website. Individual paperbacks are available at Amazon.com. Just do a search for Gospel Tangents Interview, and you can find all of our past interviews there. Show your Gospel Tangents pride by purchasing a t-shirt on our website at gospeltangents.com/shop. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents. You can get our latest updates by friending me at Facebook, or you can also follow our page at facebook.com/gospeltangents. Become an insider and you can see the newest videos. Follow us on Twitter at Gospel Tangents. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some of our great videos. Thanks again.